In a galaxy far, far away, a bright young boy named Anakin Skywalker dreamed under twin suns. He was a slave with a kind heart and extraordinary gifts, a child who dared to hope for freedom and greatness. But little did he know he carried the light of an ancient prophecy on his small shoulders. Anakin's journey would take him from innocent hero to fallen villain and finally to a redeemed soul. It's one of cinema's most dramatic transformations, a modern myth that has captivated millions. In this episode, our first episode of the Cinema Wisdom series, I will uncover the wisdom within Anakin Skywalker's story, a tale told through thrilling Star Wars scenes and explored with the eyes of psychology, mythology, and, of course, philosophy. I'll journey with Anakin, peeling back the layers of his psyche, the child of prophecy, the tragic hero, the monster he became, and ultimately the hero reborn. Along the way, I will draw parallels to real myths and real lives, asking what we can all learn from Anakin's fall and redemption about human nature and transformation. So, bear with me, and may the Force be with us as I dive deep into the heart of Anakin's saga. Now, I won't be exploring any perennial themes, but I would love for you all to have a think about it throughout this lecture and type it into the comments of some similarities across ancient traditions and scriptures that you may find from this lecture. And please do hold on till the very end, because I will be talking more about this painting that I had done that was inspired by the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. It was my first painting that I've done since year 8 school, and I have made limited edition prints that are for sale whenever it is available. A hero's beginnings, prophecy, slavery, and innocence. Every legend has an origin. Anakin's begins on the desert planet Tatooine, where he is born into slavery, a humble beginning starkly contrasted by a miraculous twist. He has no biological father. In The Phantom Menace, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn discovers Anakin and learns the boy may have been conceived by the Force itself. This virgin birth evokes mythic parallels from the birth of heroes like Hercules, born of a god and mortal, to religious figures like, of course, Jesus Christ. In fact, one analysis notes that in ancient Greek terms, Anakin would be seen as a demigod, a hero born of divine influence and mortal flesh. Anakin is believed to be the chosen one, prophesied to bring balance to the Force. This prophecy immediately casts his life in the light of myth and fate, much like Greek or Arthurian heroes marked by destiny. Yet, despite this grand destiny, Anakin's early life is anything but grand. We meet a generous, enthusiastic 9-year-old boy who loves pod racing and dreams of becoming a Jedi to free the slaves. He's selfless and kind, as noted in one study. In episode 1, Anakin is a selfless and kind child who just wants to help everyone and doesn't ask for anything himself. This pure-hearted boy wins his freedom in a daring pod race, showing courage and skills beyond his years. But freedom comes at a price. He must leave behind his beloved mother, Shmi Skywalker, I think that's her name. As he says goodbye, we see the first crack of fear and attachment form in Anakin's heart. The parting from his mother is heart-wrenching, seeing as he's always been this close to her. A gentle warning comes from Jedi Master Yoda when Anakin is brought before the Jedi Council. The wise master senses the turmoil in the boy, attachment. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Yoda's words, though spoken to a child, foreshadows the entire path of Anakin's life. Fear, specifically fear of loss, will become Anakin's greatest enemy, more so than any Sith. As George Lucas himself explained, Anakin has a fear of losing things, namely the fear of losing his mother. And he isn't willing to accept that things come and go. And as a result, he wants to control things. He wants to become more powerful. And these are not Jedi traits. In other words, the seeds of darkness in Anakin are already planted within the attachment and fear he has been introduced to, ironically stemming from the deep love and compassion that also makes him so special, paradoxically. From a Freudian psychoanalytic lens, Anakin's childhood also sets up a subconscious drive that will shape his fate. Psychoanalysts note that the absence of a father figure in early childhood can profoundly affect one's psyche. Anakin grows up without a father in such a harsh environment, yearning for guidance and stability, and also freedom from slavery. One scholarly interpretation suggests it's not a stretch to claim Anakin had a repressed desire to seek a father figure he can be inspired by. That's quite natural given his miraculous fatherless birth and upbringing as a slave. When Qui-Gon Jinn enters Anakin's life, kind, wise, and affirming, Anakin latches onto him almost immediately. Qui-Gon becomes unconsciously the father figure the boy never had. The trust and hope Anakin places in Qui-Gon are palpable. You can see the admiration in young Anakin's eyes. This makes it all the more tragic when Qui-Gon falls in battle against Darth Maul. In one swift stroke of fate, Anakin gains and loses a father figure so soon. Now, under the apprenticeship, we can say, of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon's apprentice, Anakin begins his Jedi training, but Obi-Wan, though a loyal mentor, is more like an older brother than a father to Anakin. And that can cause a bit of stress. The formal Jedi training environment also lacks the warmth and emotional guidance a vulnerable child might need. Anakin is surrounded by wise masters like Yoda and Mace Windu, but the Jedi Code forbids attachments and emotional indulgence. It's a monastic, stoic life, a stark contrast to the loving bond Anakin shared with his mother and the normal attachments he formed in childhood. Deep down, the boy is still longing for a parental figure, and it's not being met. And in the shadows of the Galactic Republic, one man indeed has noticed this longing: Chancellor Palpatine. Palpatine, a seemingly benevolent politician at this point, takes a keen interest in Anakin's career. Over the years, he positions himself as a close friend and advisor. This is no accident. It is the beginning of a calculated grooming. An insightful analysis points out that during Anakin's very vulnerable period, Palpatine started talking to Anakin. Palpatine was not only a good talker, he was also a good listener. He saw and appreciated Anakin's skill. Thus, Anakin started to view him as the paternal figure he had been unconsciously looking for. In Palpatine, Anakin finds something the Jedi Council never quite gave him, which was the constant praise, personal attention, and a feeling of being understood. Palpatine subtly feeds into the young Jedi's pride. "You will be the greatest of all Jedi, I promise you." He virtually purrs in Attack of the Clones, but also his anxieties. "They don't trust you, my boy, they fear your power." Unbeknownst to Anakin, this kind Chancellor is in fact Darth Sidious, a Dark Lord of the Sith, systematically exploiting Anakin's emotional needs. In these early chapters of Anakin's life, I see the mythic groundwork laid for a tragic hero. We all do. An extraordinary birth and prophecy give him a noble stature, gives him, akin to heroes of old, blessed by destiny. But his fatal flaw is already emerging, the fear of loss and the desperate desire for control. This flaw is deeply human. One reason Anakin's story resonates with us is because it reflects a struggle many of us face in life, just large against a galactic backdrop. As one commentator put it, a true tragic hero's flaw is often something common to all humanity. We all know fear, especially fear of losing our loved ones. Anakin's inability to let go, if left unchecked, will turn his love into chains that drag him towards the dark side. For now, though, Anakin remains a brave young Padawan with a good heart. The stage is set, the characters assembled, a boy with limitless potential, a venerable Jedi Order, and a patient Sith Lord smiling in the shadows. Before I continue, consider this early part of Anakin's journey and what it symbolizes. Mythologically, he is the classic hero in the call to adventure phase that Joseph Campbell described in The Hero's Journey, a video I have touched upon in, I forgot what it's called, but something to do with the role of myths. He leaves home, Tatooine, propelled by destiny and mentor figures, stepping into a wider world of wonder and danger. Psychologically, he carries childhood trauma, slavery, separation, and unmet needs, the parental guidance he missed out on, into his adolescence. These are the inner demons that will ride with our hero as surely as R2-D2 rides in Anakin's Starfighter. As I move into the next chapter of his life, the clash between duty and emotion will test Anakin further, and the fault lines within him will begin to crack open. Fast forward about a decade, Anakin Skywalker is no longer a wide-eyed slave boy. He's now a headstrong teenage Padawan training under Obi-Wan. In Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, we meet Anakin in the throes of adolescence, powerful in the Force, brimming with talent, but also impulsive, emotional, and hungry for recognition. He wants to be the greatest Jedi and isn't shy to say so. He is under Obi-Wan's cautious mentorship, eager to prove himself. "He's holding me back," Anakin bursts out in frustration at one point, revealing a mix of ambition but resentment. The Jedi Council, sensing his volatility, still treats him as a student, and this only feeds Anakin's impatience. Arrogance has crept into him, unsurprising, perhaps, given the chorus of voices, including Palpatine's flattery, reminding him of how special he is. But beneath the bravado, Anakin's old demons still linger: loneliness, fear, and attachment. One major test of Anakin's emotional balance arrives in the form of Padme Amidala. The elegant former queen, now senator, re-enters Anakin's life. The last time Padme saw Anakin, he was a charming child who innocently asked if she was an angel, and now he stands before her as a grown young man assigned to protect her amid a crisis. Sparks fly. For the first time, Anakin experiences romantic love, and it's forbidden. The Jedi Code prohibits attachment, including romantic bonds. Duty demands Anakin remain focused and impartial. But love is not so easily denied, as we may all know. As they spend time together in the idyllic lake country of Naboo, Anakin and Padme's mutual affection deepens. Their courtship is portrayed as tender and genuine, frolicking in fields, sharing heartfelt confessions by firelight. They are like characters in a Shakespearean tragedy or a fairy tale. Two young lovers from different worlds, a Jedi and a senator, bound by fate but kept apart by rules. George Lucas consciously wove a Romeo and Juliet element into his story. It gives us a rare glimpse of Anakin's softer side, awkward, earnest, but utterly devoted to Padme. Yet, with our psychological lens, we might ask, what does Padme represent to Anakin beyond romance? Some psychoanalytic interpretations suggest that Padme, older and compassionate in ways, fulfills a bit of the motherly comfort Anakin lost. This edges into Freudian territory. Recall Freud's theory of the Oedipal complex, where a son's early attachment to his mother can influence later love choices. And Padme is older than Anakin, significantly. While Anakin's love for Padme is genuine, one could speculate he is drawn to qualities in her that remind him of his mother's warmth and care. She's one of the few people who ever truly cared for him. She holds him with kindness on Tatooine, and she's stood by him since. Anakin even admits to Padme that since his mother's death, which I'll get to shortly, Padme is the closest thing he has to a mother in his life. A line from the novelization that underscores this complex emotional layering. Thus, his attachment to Padme is extremely deep. It's love, but it's also need, which gets a bit dangerous. This brings us to a pivotal scene and a turning point in Anakin's journey, the nightmare on Tatooine. Anakin is haunted by terrible visions of his mother, Shmi, in pain and dying. These prophetic nightmares tear open the old wound in his heart. Defying the Jedi Council's orders, Anakin rushes to Tatooine with Padme, desperate to save his mother. What he finds is devastating. She has been kidnapped and tortured by Tusken raiders. Anakin tracks her down in a Tusken camp and cradles her as she dies in his arms. Struggling to say "I love you," she tries to speak her final words, but it's too late. She is gone. This is the moment the dam breaks. All the fear, pain, and rage that had been building in Anakin since childhood explodes in an uncontrollable wave. He stands, grief-stricken over his mother's lifeless form, and anger is burning in his eyes. The camera flashes to the faces of the Tusken Raiders, fierce, inhuman masks, and then back to Anakin's face, contorted in fury. He ignites his lightsaber, and what follows is a massacre. Anakin slaughters the entire Tusken village in vengeance. Not only the warriors who tortured his mother, but, as he later confesses in agony, the women and the children too. It's a chilling scene that makes Anakin's first step into the dark abyss. From a mythological perspective, one scholar likened this event to Anakin's inmost cave in the hero's journey. The cave is a symbolic dark place where the hero faces a primal trial. For Luke Skywalker, that was literally a cave on Dagobah, where he confronted an illusion of Vader and saw his own face in the enemy's helmet. For Anakin, the cave is metaphorical. It's this Tusken Raider camp where he confronts his greatest fear, the death of a loved one, and fails the test, giving in to the darkness. And after emerging from this cave, Anakin is forever changed. There is no going back. The boy who wanted to free slaves now has blood on his hands. Psychologically, the Tusken slaughter is a trauma that will scar Anakin's soul. Immediately after, we see him break down in tears to Padme, confessing his atrocity. He's horrified at himself. He says, I killed them all. He knows it's wrong, but we see the remorse and disgust in it. But as Lucas points out, what he's really upset about is that he's just not powerful enough to save his mother. Anakin rages that he couldn't stop her death, that as a Jedi he should have been able to. He even spouts out anger at Obi-Wan and everyone for holding him back. His potential. He vows, "I will be the most powerful Jedi ever, I promise you. I will even learn to stop people from dying." And here in this moment of pain, the seeds of Darth Vader are sown. Anakin's love for his mother has twisted into torment. His fear of loss has twisted into a furious desire for absolute power over life and death itself. As one analysis succinctly, I can't pronounce that word, puts it, after this event, Anakin doubles down on his flaw. His fear of loss feeds a growing greed to keep his possessions, the people he loves, at any cost. This is classic Freudian death drive meets trauma response confronted with loss. Anakin's psyche decides the answer is to grab control so he'll never feel this helpless again. From the outside, viewers recognize the tragic irony. The more Anakin tries to control life and cheat death, the more he will bring about the very suffering he fears. It calls to mind Friedrich Nietzsche's warning, and I love this quote, it's one of my favorites. "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And when you look long into the abyss also looks into you." And at this point, Anakin has started to fight the monster called death. And in doing so, he becomes a monster, if only for a moment. He gazed into the abyss of vengeance, and it gazed back, imprinting itself on him. The Tusken Massacre is the abyss gazing into Anakin's soul. This moment also offers a Jungian interpretation. Anakin's shadow self, the dark part of his psyche, briefly takes possession of him. Carl Jung defined the shadow as the aspects of ourselves we repress or deny, often containing untamed emotions and impulses. Everyone carries a shadow. And if not acknowledged or integrated, it can erupt in destructive ways. In Anakin, the shadow is fed by all the anger he's had to bottle up under Jedi discipline, all the fear he's been told to relinquish but hasn't truly dealt with or even processed. When his mother dies, that shadow pounces. For those few horrific minutes, Anakin is possessed by his shadow, in Jung's words, standing in his own light and falling into his own traps, living below his own level. In other words, Anakin at that instant becomes his worst self, the polar opposite of the bright, idealistic boy he was, and unfortunately does something he will forever regret. The fallout from this tragedy is subtle but significant. Anakin returns to the Jedi Temple with Padme. He keeps his slaughter secret from his Jedi superiors. They sense turbulence in him quite naturally, but do not know its cause. He goes on to perform heroically in the Battle of Geonosis that follows. Even as he wrestles with inner guilt, by the end of Attack of the Clones, Anakin and Padme choose love over duty. They secretly marry, despite everything. It's a beautiful yet foreboding scene. The two star-crossed lovers exchanging vows by a lake at sunset, Lake Como. R2-D2 and C-3PO as witnesses. Feels like a hopeful ending, but we, the audience, know dark clouds are gathering. Anakin now carries a secret marriage that is forbidden by Jedi law and a secret crime. The Jedi Council remains wary of him, and Palpatine's whispering influence only grows stronger, though it's mostly behind the scenes for now. Still, in these tumultuous times, Anakin has not crossed over to evil yet. I mean, he's made terrible mistakes, but he knows they're mistakes. There is guilt, empathy, and love in him. At least Padme sees that. If his life is to pivot towards healing, say confiding in Obi-Wan, recommitting to Jedi principles, processing his grief, things might turn out differently. But war has a way of accelerating our worst tendencies, and the Clone Wars are about to put Anakin's resolve and morality through the ultimate test. War erupts across the galaxy. The Clone Wars, a vast conflict between the Republic and Separatists, rage for 3 years. Anakin Skywalker becomes a celebrated Jedi general, a war hero on the front lines of countless battles. This period, depicted in the animated Clone Wars series and various Star Wars novels, is crucial for understanding Anakin's psyche. On one hand, Anakin comes into his own as a leader and fighter. He saves planets, wins battles, and earns the loyalty of his troops. His bravery and ingenuity shine. He's known as the hero with no fear. To the Republic at large, Anakin is a champion, a symbol of hope. Even Obi-Wan grows from calling him my young Padawan to my brother. Anakin also takes on a Padawan learner of his own, a young girl named Ahsoka Tano, whom he affectionately calls Snips. Teaching Ahsoka brings out some of Anakin's best qualities: patience, protectiveness, even a streak of fun and humor. She humanizes him, giving him someone to care for and mentor, and they form a bond akin to an older brother, sister, younger sister, or even a father-daughter dynamic. For a while, it seems Anakin is firmly on the path of light despite the turmoil under the surface. However, the very nature of the Clone Wars is eroding Anakin's ideals. It's putting him to the test. The Jedi are meant to be peacekeepers, diplomats, guardians of harmony, but now they have become military generals, commanding armies and making life and death decisions daily. They fight in muddy trenches, witness betrayal and atrocity, and sometimes they must compromise their moral code for victory. This environment is dangerous for any Jedi's spirit, let alone one as emotional as Anakin. Each battle, each loss of a comrade, each tough call, like sacrificing a position or civilians' lives to win a larger fight, leaves a mark. Anakin's PTSD from the war is not explicitly shown, but one can imagine the toll it takes. Death is surrounding him. The dark side thrives on anger and pain, and war provides plenty of both. Moreover, Anakin's personal life during the war is a lot of stress. He's secretly married to Padme, who is now a prominent senator, often away on Coruscant, championing peace. They must hide their relationship, meeting in stolen moments. Anakin fears constantly for Padme's safety during these dangerous times and her political stature, and for the future. He's also deeply frustrated by the Jedi Council's conservatism. Despite his heroism, the Council often keeps Anakin at arm's length. For example, they hesitate to grant him the rank of Master and exclude him from certain knowledge, sensing his inner conflicts. To Anakin, this feels like lack of trust and appreciation. We see how that resentment builds when he fumes. How can you be on the council and not be a master in Revenge of the Sith? It's a slight that bruises his ego, certainly, but also reinforces a belief that the Jedi Order doesn't respect or understand him. Meanwhile, Palpatine's influence on Anakin increases dramatically during the war. Palpatine, who is secretly orchestrating the entire conflict as Darth Sidious, often assigns Anakin special missions, praises his successes in public, and in private becomes confident. To Anakin, Palpatine is practically a family friend, someone who has watched him since childhood and always offered encouragement. As the war nears its end, Palpatine tightens his psychological grip, nurturing Anakin's doubts about the Jedi. He drops sly comments like, "Remember, the Jedi are selfless. They only care about others." The insinuation is that maybe the Jedi don't care about him as an individual. Palpatine's goal is to turn Anakin against the Jedi, and he knows exactly which buttons to press. Anakin's insecurities and compassion. A turning point in Anakin's disillusionment comes courtesy of Ahsoka Tano's fate. In Season 5 of the Clone Wars, Ahsoka is falsely accused of a crime of bombing and murder within the temple. The Jedi Council, under pressure and somewhat blinded by their rules, expels Ahsoka and turns her over to the Republic military for trial. Throughout this ordeal, Anakin is virtually the only Jedi who unconditionally believes in Ahsoka's innocence and fights to clear her name. He eventually exposes the true culprit and Ahsoka is exonerated. But the damage is done because Ahsoka feels deeply betrayed by the Council's lack of faith and chooses to leave the Jedi Order, which is very understandable. But this is a gut punch to Anakin. He pleads with her to stay, saying, "I understand wanting to leave. I know what it's like to want to walk away from the Order." Ahsoka replies softly, "I know," and departs. Anakin is left standing there, shattered. This event shakes Anakin's trust in the Jedi to the core. He's seen an externalization of what he's been feeling internally. One analysis notes it was another thing he could add to his long list of grievances with the Order, showing just how hurt he was as well. The Council's treatment of Ahsoka proved to Anakin that the Jedi could be hypocritical and uncaring about individuals, even their own. It also made him feel more alone. If the Council could cast out someone as loyal as Ahsoka, what might they do to him if his secrets come out? The secrets that he had buried for a long time. Ahsoka's departure also intensifies Anakin's fear of loss. Yet another loved one gone. The war has cost him his childhood innocence, many comrades, and now his surrogate little sister. Each loss nudges Anakin's heart further towards darkness as anger and distrust comes to fester. Fester or foster? In these war years, I also see glimpses of Anakin's darker methods. He doesn't always adhere to the Jedi ideals of mercy and patience. In some missions, he shows a ruthless streak. For instance, executing unarmed enemies or using intimidation to achieve objectives. The war is teaching him that sometimes ends justify means. A very dangerous lesson indeed. It's easy to justify a bit of cruelty when you believe it could save many lives, maybe. Anakin's moral line blurs clearly. The Jedi Council, for all their faults, still preach restraint, but Anakin increasingly views such restraint as weakness or indecision. He begins to believe in a more absolute approach to justice. In one Clone Wars episode, he even muses that the galaxy might be better off if someone strong just told everyone what to do to end the chaos. An eerie foreshadowing of his future as an enforcer of the Empire's order. Padme teasingly asks, "And who would have that power?" Anakin half jokes, "Someone wise." But we can all sense he imagines himself in that role. This mindset does tease with philosophical themes. Palpatine, again, is key in shaping it. There's a memorable scene foreshadowing what comes later where Palpatine and Anakin discuss the nature of government. Anakin candidly states, "Sometimes I wonder if the people's legislators aren't the problem. They can't agree, so nothing gets done. I need someone who can make them agree." Padme asks if he's suggesting a dictatorship, and Anakin jests that if it works, perhaps he is. This line is half in jest, half serious. It reveals a seed of authoritarian thinking in Anakin. Here, we can invoke Nietzschean philosophy as it applies to Star Wars. Palpatine represents a Nietzschean's will to power and the abandonment of conventional morality for a self-defined higher purpose, so to speak. He encourages Anakin to see the Jedi's selflessness as naive and the Senate's democracy as weak and corrupt, which is, an opposite to what Padme stands for. We might recall that in episode 3, Palpatine's flat out tells Anakin, good is a point of view. Palpatine is essentially preaching Nietzsche's idea that traditional morals, Jedi being the altruism, humility, are a kind of slave morality, and that one must rise above it to achieve great things. An idea Nietzsche describes in Beyond Good and Evil, an incredible book, and the concept of the, I've never heard it pronounced out loud, Ubermen? No. It's darkly ironic, of course. Palpatine casts himself as this ultra-empowered figure freeing the galaxy from moral constraints when in fact he's engineering tyranny. But to a wary, disillusioned Anakin, Palpatine's words sound like wisdom. Maybe the Jedi are too rigid, maybe peace needs to be imposed by a strong hand. By the time we reach the final days of the Clone Wars, Anakin is a bundle of contradictions. A war hero who craves peace, a Jedi who's grown skeptical of the Jedi way, a good man plagued by bad dreams and bad memories, a loyal friend who feels betrayed, a loving husband terrified of loss, and a would-be father, because Padme is now secretly pregnant, desperate to protect his future family. He is, to quote Ben Kenobi in Return of the Jedi, more machine now than man, twisted and evil. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. As of Revenge of the Sith, Anakin is not yet evil, but he is terribly vulnerable. All it will take is one cruel shove to send him over the brink, and that shove is about to come from the person he trusts most. Now I arrive at the dark climax of Anakin's saga, the series of events in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, that transforms the best star pilot in the galaxy into the Dark Lord of the Sith. This chapter is rich in Shakespearean tragedy and psychological drama, so I'll break down some key scenes to truly understand why Anakin falls and what it means. The first crucial scene is the Opera House conversation. Anakin, troubled and frantic, seeks counsel from Chancellor Palpatine. He has just been left reeling by a Jedi Council snub. They asked him to spy on Palpatine, straining his loyalties, and denied him the rank of Master, which is something he obviously wanted. And adding to his anxiety, Anakin has been suffering nightmares of Padme dying in childbirth, a chilling echo of his visions of his mother. Fear for Padme is consuming him. He's desperate for a way to prevent her fate. Naturally, and enter Palpatine, stage left, ready to deliver perhaps the most brilliantly sinister temptation in modern film. The Darth plague is the wise tale. Palpatine's tone is casual, almost fatherly, as he inquires about Anakin's distress. Then he offers a tantalizing morsel. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plague the Wise? Anakin, curious and drawn in, listens. Palpatine spins the story of an ancient Sith Lord, so powerful he could use the Force to cheat death to save the loved ones that he loves from dying. Anakin's face says it all. This is exactly what he wants to hear. Perfect timing. The promise of forbidden knowledge that could spare Padme's life drops like a lure into Anakin's soul. Very convenient. Palpatine adds the punchline with a sly smile. He became so powerful, the only thing he was afraid of was losing his power. which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew, then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic, he could save others from death, but not himself. This tale is layered. It plants the idea that immortality is possible through the dark side, while also implying Palpatine might just be that apprentice who killed Plague. Plague is a not so subtle hint of his true identity. Why is this scene so pivotal? Because Palpatine is performing a Faustian seduction. He's offering Anakin a deal with the devil. If you join the dark side, you might gain the power to save Padme. It's essentially the forbidden fruit scenario from the classic story of Adam and Eve. The Jedi refuse to teach, since Jedi accept mortality as natural, is available through the Sith. And Anakin is seriously tempted. This is the moment Nietzsche's abyss opens wide before Anakin's feet. If he takes one more step, there's no turning back. Palpatine explicitly frames it in moral relativism too, telling Anakin good is a point of view. The Jedi and Sith are similar in almost every way, including their quest for greater power. He's normalizing the dark side, blurring the lines of right and wrong. Anakin doesn't jump up and declare, "I'm evil now," of course. Instead, he responds with uncertainty and conflict, classic behaviors throughout his journey. Part of him is alarmed. He even says, "You're the Sith Lord." He realizes this once he pieces it together in a later exchange, but a larger part of him is entranced by the possibility of saving Padme. The hook is in his mouth. Palpatine just needs to reel him in with a final crisis, and that crisis arrives swiftly. Palpatine reveals himself openly, essentially forcing Anakin to make a choice, revealing himself as Darth Sidious. Turn him into the Jedi or consider his offer. Anakin initially does the right thing. He reports Palpatine's treachery to Mace Windu and a trio of Jedi Masters. Here's where those philosophical and emotional fault lines crack wide open. The Jedi, in Anakin's eyes, mishandle the situation. Mace Windu moves to arrest Palpatine, but clearly doesn't even trust Anakin. "If what you told me is true, you will have gained my trust. But for now, stay out of this affair." Classic. Anakin once again feels shut out, not trusted by his order. And worse, he's waiting anxiously behind. The confrontation between Windu and Palpatine turns lethal. When Anakin bursts in, he finds Palpatine at Mace's mercy. The Jedi Master has the Sith Lord disarmed and cornered. Palpatine is firing off, desperate lightning, and Windu, sensing the danger of Palpatine poses, declares he must be destroyed now. This is the moment of no return for Anakin. In his view, events confirm every doubt Palpatine had planted. A Jedi Master is about to break the Jedi Code by executing a surrendering opponent, and deny Anakin the knowledge that could save Padme too. Palpatine cries, "I have the power to save the ones you love. You must choose." Anakin is utterly torn. He pleads with Mace, "Don't kill him. I need him to save Padme." Mace, not privy to Anakin's secret, only sees a Sith that needs to die. When Windu raises his lightsaber for the final strike, Anakin snaps. In a blur of betrayal and panic, he intervenes, slicing off Mace Windu's hand. Palpatine seizes the chance and blasts Windu with full force lightning, sending the Jedi Master plummeting out a shattered window to his death. Anakin's reeling in horror at this point at what he's done. "What have I done?" he gasps, realizing he has just attacked a Jedi to save a Sith Lord. In this heart-wrenching instant, Anakin knows there is no going back. His face says it's all anguish, regret, and dread. He has crossed the line. Despite with somewhat good intentions, committed treason against the Jedi out of love and fear. Those recurring themes. Palpatine, like a devil on his shoulder, quickly cements Anakin's fall. He proclaims, "You're fulfilling your destiny, Anakin. Become my apprentice. Learn to use the dark side of the Force to save Padme." Faced with the collapse of everything he knew, and the only hope, albeit a dark one, of saving the woman he loves, Anakin yields. He kneels and pledges himself to Darth Sidious, and in that kneel is when Anakin Skywalker dies and Darth Vader is born. Palpatine even bestows the Sith name, "You shall be known as Darth Vader." This tragic turn is the culmination of all the psychological threads I've hopefully followed correctly. Attachments and fear of loss drove Anakin to this desperate act, a textbook example of what Yoda warned: the fear of loss is a path to the dark side. Moral relativism and trust issues. Anakin believed the Jedi might be becoming evil in their own way. He even accuses Padme earlier. "From my point of view, the Jedi are evil." Palpatine manipulated this so Anakin felt choosing the Sith was almost a balanced or justified response to Jedi betrayal. A Faustian bargain. Anakin sells his soul, his principles, his allegiance for the promise of saving Padme. Classic Faust deal with the devil. Tragic flaw, his inability to let go, his hubris in thinking he could control fate, and his distrust of the Jedi all converge in one fatal decision. From a mythological angle, this is Anakin's initiation into the belly of the beast. He undergoes a dark transformation, symbolized outwardly by his new Sith identity. The hero's journey has a stage where the hero undergoes death and rebirth, metaphorically. In Anakin's case, it's an inverted rebirth. He is reborn not as an enlightened hero, but as a dark knight. He has descended into the underworld of his soul. One striking literary parallel is Faust, or even Macbeth. Like Macbeth, Anakin started noble but was spurred by this prophecy and temptation to commit, or in this case, Jedicide, and fall from grace. And like Faust, Anakin makes an unholy pact to gain knowledge and power, leading to damnation. It's almost reminiscent of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Recall earlier Jung's quotes comparing the shadow to Dr. Jekyll's Mr. Hyde. Anakin has effectively let his Mr. Hyde persona take over in order to do what his Dr. Jekyll side could not. As the Medium essay put it, what is interesting in Star Wars, as in Jekyll and Hyde, is that the dark side is manifested in one and the same person. Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. Up until now, they are one person with inner conflict. Now, the balance has decisively shifted to the dark persona, and we are getting to see that. With Anakin's fall, Darth Vader's rise begins immediately and horrifically. Palpatine, now Emperor, sends his new apprentice on a mission that is both strategic and symbolic: the destruction of the Jedi Order. He commands, "Do what must be done, Lord Vader. Do not hesitate, show no mercy." Only by committing an act of ultimate betrayal can Anakin fully cement himself in the dark side, as if Palpatine is saying, "Prove your loyalty by burning your old life to the ground." And so Anakin marches to the Jedi Temple at the head of the clone troopers, who have been ordered via Order 66 to turn on their Jedi generals. The Jedi Temple massacre is perhaps the most heartbreaking scene of all. Anakin, but now Vader, slaughters everyone in the temple, including the youngling children who had looked up to him as Mr. Skywalker. Whilst, the film spares us graphic detail, the emotional light is tremendous. We see a child stammer, "Master Skywalker, there are too many of them, what are we going to do?" And Anakin's lightsaber ignites with a snap hiss. We cut away, but the implication is clear. This, ethically, is the point of no return. If there was any lingering doubt that Anakin had fallen, it dies in that room with those children. For the audience, it's a moment of horror. We are witnessing a beloved hero commit to the most heinous of acts. For Anakin, it's the moment his soul shatters. Each swing of his blade against a former ally or innocent is him trying to kill the Anakin within. One might wonder what is going through Anakin's mind as he does this. The movie shows him later leaping on Mustafar, a single tear as he contemplates what he's done. He believes, tragically, that it's all for Padme, that these atrocities are necessary to secure the power to save her. This is, of course, the twisted logic of the dark side. Noble ends of saving my wife, justifying utterly evil means. Philosophically, this raises the classic debate, do ends ever justify means? Anakin has decided yes in this case. Perhaps he also feels a sense of betrayal by the Jedi, which he uses as his partial rationalization. He tells himself the Jedi are plotting, that he is bringing peace by preempting them. There's a brief line when he confronts Padme later. "I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire." It rings hollow, but it shows his clinging to the idea that his actions have some greater good. In truth, it is the Sith deal coming due. He traded his conscience for the possibility of saving Padme, and now he has to live with that choice by doubling down and not looking back. After the temple, Anakin, Vader, carries out one more gruesome task for Sidious, eliminating the separatist leaders on Mustafar, effectively tying up the war with one final massacre. By now, he's running on dark autopilot, but Mustafar is where the personal tragedy truly takes place. Padme, horrified by what she's hearing of Anakin's deeds, Obi-Wan informs her of Anakin's turn, rushes to Mustafar to confront her husband. There, amid the hellish red volcanic landscape, a literal vision of Dante's Inferno, Padme begs Anakin to come back to the light. We see for a moment Anakin's conflict flicker. His love for Padme is still genuine, but when Obi-Wan appears, having secretly stoled on Padme's ship, Anakin feels an explosive mix of betrayal and paranoia, and in his warped state, he suspects Padme brought Obi-Wan to kill him. Enraged and blinded by jealousy, another classic tragic flaw akin to Othello's, Anakin does the unthinkable. He uses the Force to choke Padme into unconsciousness. It's a horrifying mirror of his original goal. He wanted to save her from dying, yet he is here nearly killing her in anger. And this leads to the final duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Master versus apprentice, brother against brother, good versus evil. All atop rivers of lava. This duel is emotionally charged. Obi-Wan pleads with Anakin to see reason, but Anakin is too far gone, spitting back lines from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. The climax comes when Obi-Wan gains the higher ground, literally on a slope above Anakin. He warns Anakin to back down, but consumed by pride and wrath, Anakin leaps to attack, and Obi-Wan is forced to strike him down, slicing off Anakin's remaining organic limbs in one swift stroke. Anakin tumbles to the black sand, maimed and defeated, inching perilously close to the lava. What follows is, in terms of raw emotion, one of the most powerful moments in the saga. Anakin, his eyes now yellow with Sith corruption, tries to claw his way up while his body ignites with And from the heat, Obi-Wan looks down with tears in his eyes and cries out, "You are the chosen one. It was said you would destroy the Sith, not join them, bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness." And Anakin only snarls back with, "I hate you," as flames consume him. Heartbroken, Obi-Wan picks up Anakin's fallen lightsaber and leaves, believing Anakin is lost forever, physically and spiritually. This operatic end to Anakin's mortal life fulfills the classical definition of a tragedy. The hero, by his own flaws and choices and a fair bit of manipulation by others, we'll admit, has caused his own downfall and suffers the ultimate penalty. Anakin has lost everything: his family, his friends, his body, even his very identity as a Jedi. And this is it. The reversal of fortune Aristotle talked about in Tragedy. Not long ago, Anakin was a respected Jedi Knight with a bright future. Now he lies on the brink of death, a cautionary tale of hubris. There's a sliver of anagnosis, recognition, in that he now probably realizes in agony how horribly he's failed, but it's too late. And yet the story isn't quite done as we know it. Palpatine arrives and saves what's left of Anakin, not out of compassion, but because he needs his apprentice. In a gruesome sequence, Anakin is encased in the now iconic Darth Vader armor. Metal limbs replace what was lost, a black suit with a life support chest panel that covers his charred body. A menacing black helmet is lowered onto his head, its mask sealing Anakin's face away in darkness. In a way, this suit is Anakin's new skin, the final outward sign that he has become the very monster he once swore to fight. A commentarial piece described it as Palpatine quite literally puts the enemy's skin on Anakin, his cybernetic replacements and enhancements. He is completely remade and reborn as Darth Vader, the brutal enforcer. The transformation is complete. When Vader takes his first mechanical breath, it's like a demon's birth cry. Fittingly, this new birth occurs just as Padme, in another location, dies giving birth to Anakin's twin children, Luke and Leia. With her last breath, Padme still believes there's good in him, but Anakin doesn't know of his children's survival. Palpatine lies that in his anger, Anakin killed Padme, and that lie is the final knife twist, plunging Vader into despair and sealing off any immediate thought of return to the light. His anguished howl is then followed by cold silence. Darth Vader, as we know him in the original trilogy, now stands at Palpatine's side, more machine than man, twisted and evil. The fall of Anakin Skywalker is now absolute, but what wisdom can we glean from this darkest chapter? In narrative terms, it's a warning. It's as if the story says, this is what can happen to a person who succumbs to fear, anger, and the temptation of power. We see how every step down Anakin's dark path was paved with good intentions or understandable emotions. Love for his mother turned into murderous vengeance. Love for his wife turned into authoritarian obsession. Desire for peace turned into war crimes. A heroic desire to save people turned into an arrogant desire to control life and death. It's a stark portrayal of the slippery slope of moral compromise. In philosophical terms, Anakin's fall illustrates how a combination of consequentialist thinking, ends over means taken to extreme, loss of moral reference, listening to Palpatine's point of view logic, and unchecked emotional impulses can lead to a person to become that which they originally abhorred. The Jedi teachings of mindfulness, compassion, and letting go were meant to prevent exactly this kind of collapse, but Anakin couldn't adhere to them when it mattered most. Psychologically, one could view Anakin's transformation into Vader as a form of ego death or identity fragmentation. To survive that cognitive dissonance of what he's done, Anakin effectively kills his former self entirely, as I'll touch on in the conclusion with a very literal quote about that. Darth Vader is, in a sense, a persona Anakin adopts to cope with his pain and guilt. It is easier to continue being the feared Sith Lord than to face the horror of being Anakin Skywalker who murdered Innocence. This aligns with what trauma psychology tells us, actually. Sometimes people dissociate or take on new identities under extreme guilt or stress. Vader is Anakin's dissociation, but on a larger scale, a permanent mask to bury his suffering soul. Yet, mythologically, this isn't the end of the hero's journey. In tragedy, the story might end here, with a caution and catharsis for the audience. But Star Wars is also about hope and redemption. The prophecy of the chosen one still lingers. And is Anakin truly lost forever? The narrative leaves a glimmer. Padme's dying words, Yoda and Obi-Wan's decision to hide his children, and even the cinematic language. We end Revenge of the Sith with hope. Luke delivered to his aunt and uncle and Tatooine's sons. The return stage of the hero's journey is yet to come in a most unexpected way. For 2 decades after his fall, Anakin Skywalker ceases to exist in any meaningful public sense. In his place stands Darth Vader, the Emperor's dark enforcer, scouring the galaxy for any remaining Jedi and enforcing Imperial rule with an iron fist. To the galaxy, Vader is a figure of terror, faceless, emotionless, on the outside, seemingly a being of pure evil. But for our purposes, we must remember that inside that suit and behind that mask is a man in constant torment. The original trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6, initially present Vader as the archetypal villain, but by the end they transform him back into a tragic hero. The wisdom in Anakin's story comes full circle through the events of these films. In A New Hope, Vader is ruthless. He strides onto Princess Leia's ship, chokes prisoners for information, and casually orders entire planets destroyed. The Death Star blowing up Alderaan in pursuit of crushing the rebellion. There's little hint of Anakin here, except perhaps in his obsession with finding Obi-Wan, whom he confronts and strikes down, with more than a hint of settled grudges. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master, he declares. Obi-Wan's cryptic last words to Vader: if you strike me down, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And his serene sacrifice plants seeds that Vader doesn't understand yet. Obi-Wan becomes one with the Force, later guiding Luke. Vader is left to continue his quest for power, but we start to see the cracks in his facade in The Empire Strikes Back. Now, in that film, the focus shifts to Luke Skywalker, Anakin's son, though Vader doesn't know that fact until midway through the story. Vader is driven by an unexplained personal passion in Empire. He becomes obsessed with finding the young rebel who destroyed the Death Star. When Palpatine informs him that Luke is the son of Anakin Skywalker, we sense conflict. Vader's reaction is thoughtful, not angry. He then schemes privately to perhaps recruit Luke. Could it be that the name Skywalker awakens something in Vader? When Vader duels Luke on Bespin, he reveals the saga's most famous twist: "No, I am your father." This moment is dramatic for Luke, of course, but think about it from Vader's perspective. Anakin Skywalker, buried under layers of hate and regret, has a living legacy, a child who is pure, good, and strong in the Force. Facing Luke is like facing the embodiment of his former self, idealistic, courageous, his good traits, and also the family he could have had. I am your father is Vader claiming that connection, perhaps even a bid to reclaim some identity. He doesn't kill Luke. Instead, he tempts him. Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son. This twisted invitation shows Vader's psyche in flux. On one hand, it's a ploy to overthrow the Emperor, Vader playing the Sith apprentice's traditional game to supplant the Master. On the other hand, it's a genuine emotional plea. The first time we sense yearning in Vader, some emotion. He wants Luke with him. It's like the buried Anakin is stirring, longing for something of his old life. Luke, horrified, refuses and escapes, which actually leaves Vader disappointed. The mighty Darth Vader silently returns to his master, but something has changed. The shadow that consumed Anakin is flickering, challenged by the light of his son. By Return of the Jedi, the stage is set for redemption. Luke believes firmly there is good in his father, just like his mother did. He says, I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate. Vader responds, it is too late for me, son. Here we have an astonishing thing. Darth Vader, Dark Lord, sounds almost sad and remorseful. He's resigned to his fate, believing Anakin is dead and cannot rise again. This is the inner prison of shame and evil that many fallen individuals face. The belief that they've gone too far to ever come back. It's a crucial psychological point. Sometimes people stay in darkness not because they want to, but because they think they deserve no better or fear that there is no escape. And Vader is trapped in that very fear and despair that the dark side thrives on. However, Luke's compassion, his unconditional love for his father, despite all Vader has done and who he is the key that can unlock that prison. The final test comes in the Emperor's throne room. In an almost mythic setup, Luke the son and Vader the father face Emperor Palpatine, a Satan-like tempter, aboard the second Death Star. Palpatine orchestrates their duel, trying to push Luke to embrace hatred and strike Vader down, thus turning Luke to the dark side. In the duel, Luke manages to restrain himself until Vader probes Luke's emotions and threatens to corrupt Leia, Luke's twin sister. Luke snaps and furiously attacks Vader, mirroring Anakin's rage decades earlier. He even succumbs to rage enough to hack off Vader's hand. But in that moment, Luke sees the parallel. He looks at his own cybernetic hand and then at Vader's severed mechanical stump, and realizes he is on the verge of becoming what his father became. Horrified, Luke stops himself and throws away his lightsaber, declaring, I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi like my father before me, and it is that declaration that is vital. Luke asserts that Anakin Skywalker is still present, my father before me, as a Jedi in spirit. It's a validation of Anakin's true self, spoken aloud for all to hear. Palpatine sneers and unleashes torrents of Force lightning into Luke, torturing him. And now we arrive at Anakin's ultimate moment of truth. Vader, beaten and lying at the Emperor's side, watches his son in agony, pleading, Father, please. Now, what is going through Vader's mind? Is it Anakin stirring, fully awake? This scene is often shown without dialogue, just Vader looking back and forth between Luke and the Emperor, and the music stilling with tension. In that silent struggle, Anakin's soul reasserts itself. He can't let his son die, not like this, not by this monster's hand. And in a sudden move, Vader grabs Palpatine from behind. The Emperor shrieks in surprise as Vader, enduring the full blast of dark side energy, lifts him and hurls him down into the reactor shaft. The Emperor is destroyed by his own lightning and, well, gravity, but Vader is mortally wounded in the process. The electricity ravages his life support systems. Vader collapses, and Luke rushes to his side. In his final moments, Anakin Skywalker finally manages to speak. Through the vocabulator, he asks Luke to help remove his mask. Luke, in tears, says, "But you'll die?" Anakin, with the wisdom of someone who has finally found peace, tells him, "Nothing can stop that now." Luke removes the helmet, and for the first and last time, father and son look upon each other with their own eyes. Anakin is pale, scarred, but there is a gentle warmth in his expression. "Now go, my son," he says, "leave me." And of course Luke refuses. "No, I'm going to save you." And Anakin responds softly, "You already have, Luke. You were right. You were right about me. Tell your sister you were right." And with that, Anakin Skywalker dies, free from hate, returned to the light. It's an incredibly cathartic moment. The Chosen One ultimately did destroy the Sith, both himself as Vader and Palpatine, and bring balance, but it happened in a way no one expected, through the love of his son and an act of self-sacrifice. In mythical terms, this is the atonement and return with the elixir stage of the hero's journey. Anakin has finally overcome the darkness within and in doing so, he saves his son and the galaxy from tyranny. One insightful commentary notes how the title Return of the Jedi is beautifully layered. It refers to Luke becoming a Jedi and to the return of Anakin Skywalker, the Jedi who was thought lost. The Jedi Order may have been gone, but in that moment Anakin is the Jedi reborn, fulfilling his destiny in the end. Anakin's story thus doesn't end in despair, but in redemption and hope. So what wisdom do we ultimately find in Anakin's journey now that we've seen it from innocent start to tragic fall to redemptive finish? Perhaps the most profound lesson is this: no one is beyond redemption if there remains even a spark of good. Anakin fell to the deepest darkness, became a monster by all definitions, and yet love brought him back. This echoes mythological themes of death and rebirth, and even religious themes of salvation. It's no accident that in the celebratory finale of Return of the Jedi, we see Anakin's spirit manifest, restored to his younger Jedi self alongside Obi-Wan and Yoda. It's a visual representation that Anakin's essence was saved. He is forgiven now and one with the Force. Another lesson is about the duality of human nature. Anakin/Vader's saga is a case study in the shadow we discussed. Young might say that Anakin's downfall came because he tried to deny and outrun his inner darkness rather than face and integrate it. He feared and hated his own fear and anger, making him vulnerable to it, ironically. Only when he finally confronted his darkness out of love for Luke did he break free of its control. This suggests that wisdom lies in acknowledging our shadow, not letting it rule us, but understanding it's part of us. Star Wars externalizes the inner conflict, light side, dark side of the Force, yin-yang, but It's very much about that internal psychological balance. We also glean insight into the peril of attachment versus love. The Jedi preached letting go of attachments, and while their dogmatic approach was flawed, suppressing normal emotions can be unhealthy, there was truth to the idea that possessive love can lead to fear and suffering. Anakin's tragedy stemmed from confusing possessive love with compassionate love, as Lucas puts it. He wanted to possess and save Padme so desperately that he, in the end, caused her destruction. Yet, in the end, it was a selfless, unconditional love, letting Luke live even if it meant his own death. That was what redeemed him. Thus, the wisdom might be true love is selfless and freeing, not possessive. This aligns with many philosophical and spiritual teachings. The obvious case is Buddhism's non-attachment, for example, or even the Christian idea of agape love, if I've pronounced that word correctly. Historically, or in real-life parallels, we can find echoes of Anakin's journey in figures who chased power or security and lost themselves. Think of leaders who started with noble aims but let power corrupt. Common saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely, which Lucas himself echoed. Power corrupts, and when you're in charge, you start doing things that you think are right, but they're actually not. Anakin thought more power would let him do good, but it had the opposite effect. The checks and balances, humility and counsel he had as a Jedi, flawed as the Jedi were actually important. Losing those constraints under Palpatine's influence let his worst impulses run wild. So there's a socio-political wisdom too, especially amongst the political leaders we see today and within our history. Beware the leader who operates without accountability or who believes only they know what is right. Anakin fell for the idea that he alone could fix things if he had ultimate power, a trait we see in many tragic historical figures. In contrast, the humility to trust others and accept limits might have saved him a lot of pain. And finally, there is wisdom in the cycle of mistakes and forgiveness between generations. Anakin's story, when wielded alongside Luke's, is a tale of a son learning from his father's mistakes and finding a better way. Luke nearly succumbs as Anakin did, but he pulls himself back, and crucially, he doesn't give up on his father. This choice to show mercy is what ultimately saves both of them. It's a powerful message. Our parents or predecessors might have fallen, but we are not doomed to repeat their fate. In fact, we can help redeem them by exemplifying what they taught us at their very best. And that is powerful. Anakin's inherent goodness lived on in Luke, and that goodness was the key to unlocking Anakin's own buried light. It's a beautiful notion of intergenerational redemption. In sum, Anakin Skywalker's life is an incredible, rich, layered tapestry of mythical archetypes, psychological truths, and moral lessons. We see the hero, the lover, the shadow, the warrior, the fallen angel, and the redeemed all in one saga. No wonder analysing Anakin can appeal equally to film fans, philosophy enthusiasts like myself, and those on their own personal growth journeys. The story invites us to reflect on our own inner Anakin, our potential for great good or great error, and on the importance of compassion, both towards others but also towards ourselves, even after we fall and have those moments. Now, having walked through the fire and back, we turn to a final powerful way to Anakin's tale. One delivered decades later, but which encapsulates the essence of his transformation in a single chilling line. You did not kill Anakin Skywalker, I did. Many years after Anakin's death and rebirth, the Star Wars universe returned to the character in the 2022 Obi-Wan Kenobi series in a climactic confrontation. Exiled Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi duels Darth Vader 10 years after their fateful battle on Mustafar. Obi-Wan manages to crack Vader's helmet, exposing part of Anakin's scarred face beneath. In the flickering light, Obi-Wan sees the face of his former friend and tearfully says, "I'm sorry for all of it." In this changed moment, it's as if Obi-Wan is apologizing for failing Anakin, for not seeing his pain, a decade of guilt pouring out. What comes next is both harrowing and illuminating. Vader, with a mix of Hayden Christensen's voice and James Earl Jones's synthesized baritone, declares, "I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You did not kill Anakin Skywalker. I did." His one visible eye is wild and yellow, but perhaps there's a glint of pride or pain. I'll let you decide. Obi-Wan is stunned into silence as Vader continues, "The same way I will destroy you." Let's unpack that line. You did not kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. This is the Vader affirming that Anakin, the good man Obi-Wan knew, is truly gone, murdered by the evil persona that remains. It's a stark statement of personal responsibility, or what's left of it in Vader. At face value, it's almost a taunt, absolving Obi-Wan of blame, only to emphasize that Anakin chose this path. It is Anakin/Vader acknowledging, "I became a monster of my own will." For Obi-Wan, it perversely offers a measure of closure. The friend he loved wasn't taken by something Obi-Wan did. It was Anakin's own decision, under Palpatine's influence, of course, that sealed his fate. In a twisted way, Vader is freeing Obi-Wan of the guilt, "I am not your failure," but is also entrenching himself in the identity of Vader, claiming that identity with full ownership, saying, "I killed the Anakin in me." This line resonates with the psychoanalytic idea I mentioned, how Anakin, in becoming Vader, had to essentially kill his former self as a coping mechanism. Here, he's outright confirming that psychological reality. The persona of Vader has stamped out Anakin so thoroughly that he speaks of Anakin in third person, as someone else entirely. From a mythological lens, it's as if the shadow is bragging that it won. The darkness conquered the light within. It's a tragic notion. The hero within was slain. Yet, as viewers, we know something Vader doesn't fully accept yet. That statement won't hold true forever. There is still a spark of Anakin, and Luke later on proves this. But for now, in this moment, Vader believes it. This line is powerful, also because it shows a warped form of integrity, or at least a conscious choice by Anakin Vader. He is not blaming Obi-Wan, not blaming anyone else, in fact, for what he became. He is saying, "I made this choice." In Nietzschean terms, this could be seen as Vader's will to power in full force. He is owning this transformation of his as a deliberate act of will. I did it. It's dark, but there's a strange empowerment in it. For Obi-Wan, hearing this allows him to finally let go of Anakin with a heavy heart. He says, "Then my friend is truly dead. Goodbye, Darth," calling him by the Sith title instead of his name, an acknowledgement that the Anakin he knew isn't who stands before him. It's an incredibly poignant moment of closure. Obi-Wan walks away, choosing not to kill Vader, which interestingly leaves space for the eventual redemption, though Obi-Wan at the time doesn't know that. The emotional light of that line, "I did," lingers with the audience. It encapsulates the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker in past tense from the character's own mouth. Now, why conclude our deep dive with this particular quote? Because it ties together so many themes we've explored. Identity and self, Anakin's view of himself versus Vader's view. Vader has tried to bury Anakin, yet the very need to assert that he killed Anakin suggests an inner conflict. Why bring it up if Anakin was truly irrelevant? Bit dramatic. Responsibility. There were many factors in Anakin's fall, Jedi missteps, Palpatine's deception, but in the end he made the choice. Wisdom often begins with owning one's choices, even the bad ones, and only then perhaps can change occur, albeit Vader doesn't seek change here, but the later spark of Anakin's responsibility for Luke when he saves Luke is foreshadowed by this ownership of killing Anakin. It's paradoxical, but it is interesting. And there's the psychological death. Vader's phrasing is an admission of psychological self-destruction. He metaphorically committed suicide of the Anakin persona, which is a stark depiction of what guilt and shame can do, unfortunately. In real life, people talk about parts of themselves dying after trauma or choices. Vader articulates that literally. The shadow's victory, also it thinks. It reminds us of Jung's warning that failing to integrate the shadow lets it overwhelm us, as is famously known. Vader thinks the shadow has won, yet the audience, armed with the full saga knowledge, knows that this isn't the final chapter. After analysing that line and its heavy implications, we reflect on the journey one more time. In the end, Anakin Skywalker found some measure of wisdom, but it came at the very end of his life and through much pain. Perhaps the wisdom for us is to learn from Anakin's mistakes rather than repeat them, just like Luke Skywalker did. To face our fears and inner darkness before they take us to a point of no return. To cherish love, but not to let it turn into possessiveness. To seek guidance and honest communication. Imagine if Anakin had felt safe enough to confide in Yoda or Obi-Wan fully about his fears. Things might have been different, and importantly, to believe in redemption for others and for ourselves. Anakin's fall shows how even a hero can fall into hell, but his redemption shows that even in hell, one can still remember the light and climb back out. The line, "You did not kill Anakin Skywalker, I did," is, in a way, Vader locking the door on his own redemption, but Luke later unlocks that door. It's the younger generation offering forgiveness and hope that allows the older generation to forgive themselves and change, and that is incredibly beautiful. That's a timeless lesson applicable from personal relationships, children healing their parents' wounds, to societal progress, new generations correcting the errors of the past. To conclude our narrative, picture Anakin's journey as a grand mural. On one end, a young boy bathed in sunlight. On the other hand, a redeemed Jedi's spirit smiling alongside his son. In between, a long blend of darkness where a figure in black battles demons within and without. It's a story of rise, fall, and redemption. A cycle that has played out in myths from Icaristo Lancelot to modern superhero tales. Anakin's uniqueness is in the depth of psychological insight. We get into why he fell, and through that insight perhaps we find empathy, not to excuse his sins, but to understand how we might avoid our own. Finding wisdom in Anakin Skywalker means recognizing that even the most fantastical sci-fi saga holds a mirror to our reality and ourselves, and is one of the main reasons why I love cinema, because it often does hold a mirror to us. Anakin's life invites us to ask tough questions. How do I deal with fear and loss? Do I sometimes choose what's easy over what's right? Can I come back from my own worst mistakes? it also inspires us with the enduring power of compassion and hope. After all, if Darth Vader can find redemption, maybe there's hope for anyone and everyone. As the character himself proved in the end, compassion is central to a Jedi's life, and it was indeed compassion, Luke's for him and his for Luke, that ultimately saved Anakin's soul. And now, I'd like to conclude on a personal note. The moment I discussed from Obi-Wan Kenobi, Vader's cracked mask and the haunting admission of Anakin's death is one that many fans, including myself, had found unforgettable. It's a visual and emotional gut punch that encapsulates decades of storytelling. It's one of my favourite scenes, and to commemorate that powerful scene and everything it represents, it drew inspiration for my first painting, a special piece of artwork. A painting capturing Anakin Vader with the fractured mask, the duality of light and dark on his face, and symbolizing that very journey we've explored, with the one eye shown, the human Anakin within, and one eye in darkness with the Sith visage, representing the eternal struggle and the sliver of humanity that persists. I'm excited to offer this artwork as a limited edition print to my subscribers as a thank you for joining me into this deep dive. It's our way of helping you keep a piece of Anakin's story and its hard-earned wisdom close to you. Thank you so much for watching and delving into the mythology, psychology, and philosophy, the meaning behind Anakin Skywalker's journey. I really appreciate it, and I would like to end this with my disclaimer that I am by no means complaining to be knowledgeable in everything, except that I am in the humble pursuit of wisdom. And remember, the greatest teacher, failure is, as Yoda would say. And the story of Anakin shows that even the greatest failures, we can learn and find our way to the light. Until next time, may the Force be with you always.